As you prepare for the first exam, you'll note that there are a couple of questions that talk about this competitive dynamics thing, and one of them, or both of them, I actually think get to the heart of the competitive dynamics, or when I say get to the heart of it, they get well below the skin. So let's sum up with just a couple of thought-provoking considerations. First is, when you launch attacks or as you respond to attacks, what are you trying to achieve? And that was the purpose of the previous video. What's your strategy? What are you trying to accomplish through this? Is this a situation where you've allowed your market share to atrophy to the point where you're becoming irrelevant and you just have to do stuff to gain market share for a while, even though you know it's going to hurt your profitability? Are you trying to take a positive step up in market share with a small short-term dent in profitability to dominate for the long run? Are you really focused on profitability? Do you think you've got the right moves figured out to boost your profit margins at the expense of others while not sacrificing any market share? These are all things. Know what you're aiming for. Then, as uncomfortable as it may be to conclude, once you've decided on what you're going to do, it almost always pays off to be subtle and deceptive about it. You don't win by tipping your hand to your enemy, unless, I say that most of the time you don't. Sometimes you tip your hand because you know what they're going to do, and then you wham, do something they don't expect, and that works out well. But in general, being secretive, being deceptive, being subtle, being closed mouth is going to pay off. And then you hit them when they're tied down. This can be either because they have no awareness or they have no capability. And let me illustrate this with BSG. I know you don't understand BSG yet, but you will soon. Reached a point, NBA class, huge price war. They beat each other's brains out. They were bloodied and lying on the floor half dead. And they failed to expand their plants as the market had been growing. And now they were working their way out of the price war. And I had one team, and only one, that realized nobody had any spare capacity. In fact, they didn't have enough capacity to meet the demand. And what that says is, I can raise my prices because they're going to run out of shoes before they can meet the demand as is, and I can raise my prices and pick up the excess demand. They are the only ones that understood that. They're the only ones that knew that everybody was tied down. They did not have the capacity to respond. And guess what? They failed to capitalize. I did not talk on previous slides, although I meant to, about first mover versus second mover. This is one thing, unfortunately, the textbook doesn't do a good job of talking about. That's why I included the handout. What I simply want to make the point is that neither a first mover nor a second mover strategy is a slam dunk. Was Apple the first to do MP3 players? No. What they simply did is they followed others, but they had a significantly better MP3 player, and they had a better service called iTunes that really made the MP3 players work. But that doesn't mean being second's always better. Facebook with MySpace were first into the social network phase. Facebook was able to kill MySpace or make them irrelevant. Over time, as Google figured out that this was a market that was important to have a presence in, they launched Google Plus, which never catches on. So even though you have all the might of Google behind you, they were not able to make a second mover strategy work in social networks. So neither one is a slam dunk, and that's what the exam question is about, is tell me when one is likely to work better than the others, and don't tell me, well, a second mover is going to work better than when a first mover messes up. Hello, of course, that's always true. You can dig into it and you can see situations that might lend to better second mover success. However, in general, whether you are a second mover or not, it tends to move quickly because the market does pass you by. Remember, another company tried to enter the MP3 player market with a really good product and a really good support behind it. And that was Microsoft, and it's Zune, and it never caught on. Play hardball. Know what you want and go get it, period. But remember that your business strategy may determine what your success looks like. This is actually something I studied in my dissertation, and one of the things I found is companies that had effective differentiation strategies when they were competitively aggressive, they didn't tend to grow their market share very much, but they did tend to work on their profitability. Companies that were more in a cost leader position, in that they had thin margins, when they became competitively aggressive, you tended to see significant gains in their market share. Lastly, you have to know when to stop, and that's forbearance and co-opetition. When is it better not to punch? When is it better to cooperate than compete? Now keep this in mind. Even as Apple was suing the pants off of Samsung for smartphone integration, who are they buying chips from for their phones? Samsung. So this is a very delicate situation that bears monitoring. To wrap it up, this is going to be really fun in BSG. Understanding how to compete and how to outfox people and how to understand what they're going to do before they know what they're going to do, trust me, winner.